I still remember that morning like it just happened yesterday. The air felt heavy, like even the wind knew something was about to go wrong. I was 17, sitting on the edge of my bed in my little room in Ohio, with my books scattered all over the floor, history, math, English. My mom kept shouting from downstairs, "Linda, you're gonna be late again." And I remember yelling back, "I'm coming, Mom!" Even though I was still flipping pages like somehow, maybe, I could memorize a whole semester in 10 minutes. Yeah. That didn't happen. That day was my final exam, the one that was supposed to decide my future. At least, that's what every teacher, every relative, and even my dad made it sound like. "You pass this, Linda," he used to say, "and college doors will open wide." But deep down, I wasn't that confident. I had tried hard, but you know how sometimes your brain just freezes when the pressure's too much? That was me, frozen, scared, pretending I was fine. I remember the walk to school. The sun was already high, but it didn't feel warm. My best friend, Marcy, walked beside me, humming some tune from the Carpenters, and she was so calm, too calm. I envied that about her. She could laugh before an exam like it was just another day. Me? My stomach was doing backflips. We entered the classroom, and I swear the smell of chalk and old paper hit me harder than the fear itself. Everyone was sitting in their seats, whispering, trading last-minute notes. I sat down, clutching my pencil like it was my only weapon. Mr. Davis, our history teacher, handed out the exam papers with that look, that serious teacher face that makes you feel like you're about to face Judgment Day. I glanced at the first question, and my heart dropped. I didn't know the answer, not even close. My mind went completely blank. I stared at that page, the letters blurring together like they were laughing at me. My palms got sweaty. I tried to breathe, but the more I thought, the less I could think. Minutes turned into hours. People started finishing, turning in their papers, walking out with relief. I was still there, half the questions unanswered, tears forming in the corners of my eyes. I didn't want anyone to see. I kept my head down, but when I finally handed my paper to Mr. Davis, I could barely look at him. Walking home that day was silent. Even Marcy didn't say much. She knew. I could feel it in the way she kept glancing at me, wanting to help but not knowing how. When I got home, my mom asked, "How did it go, honey?" And I just smiled, that fake, painful smile, and said, "It was okay." Then I went straight to my room, closed the door, and cried. The next few days were torture. Every morning, I'd wake up with that same pit in my stomach. I tried to distract myself, but deep down I was counting the hours until results came out. My dad noticed I was quieter. He'd ask, "Everything all right, kiddo?" I'd just nod. I didn't have the courage to tell him I'd probably failed the one thing he believed would define me. And then the day came. Results pinned on the school bulletin board. I remember walking up with shaky hands trying to act cool but dying inside. The moment I found my name, I felt my world collapse, failed. Big bold letters right next to my name. My breath caught. My knees almost gave out. Marcy found me there, staring at that board like I'd just seen a ghost. She whispered, "Linda," but I couldn't speak. I just walked away. Everything felt blurry. The noise, the people, even the air. I walked straight out of that building, across the street, past the park, all the way home without saying a word. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't cry either. I just lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd done wrong. Everyone said failure was a lesson, but no one ever said how much it hurts to actually fail. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd disappointed everyone, my parents, my teachers, even myself. But funny thing? That night was also the beginning of something I didn't even see coming. Sometimes, it takes losing everything you thought mattered to find what truly does. The next morning, I woke up feeling like a ghost of myself. You know that feeling when you open your eyes, and for a second, everything feels okay, until you remember what went wrong? That was me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, sunlight creeping through the curtains, and all I could think was, I failed. Mom knocked softly. "Linda, honey, breakfast's ready." Her voice was gentle, too gentle. That's how I knew she already knew. When I came downstairs, she didn't say anything, just placed a plate of pancakes in front of me. My dad was reading the newspaper, pretending to be busy, but I could feel the silence between us. You could slice it with a knife. Finally, he folded the paper and looked at me. So, you didn't make it. His tone wasn't angry. It was worse, it was disappointed. I swear, that look from him hurt more than the word failed. I whispered, I tried, Dad. He sighed. Trying isn't always enough, Linda. Life's tough. You gotta be tougher. I wanted to scream, to tell him I knew that already. But instead, I just nodded, picked at my food, and tried not to cry. After breakfast, I went for a walk. I didn't even know where I was going. My feet just moved. I ended up at this old park we used to hang out at after school. The swings were still there, rusty and creaking in the breeze. I sat down on one and just started swinging slowly, watching little kids play, hearing their laughter echo in the distance. For a moment, I wanted to be one of them again. When life was simple, when failing a test didn't mean failing at life. Then, out of nowhere, I heard someone behind me say, "Hey, stranger." I turned around. It was Mark, the quiet boy from my class who barely spoke, but always seemed to notice everything. He smiled softly and said, "Tough week, huh?" I tried to smile back. "That obvious?" He chuckled. "Let's just say the whole school's been talking about grades." "Great," I said, rolling my eyes. "So now I'm officially famous." He laughed. "Nah, just human. Happens to the best of us." We ended up talking for hours that day. I didn't even realize how much I needed that conversation until it happened. Mark wasn't like the others. He didn't judge me, didn't try to fix me. He just listened. He told me how he'd failed his math exam the year before and thought his world was over too. "But you know what?" he said, picking up a pebble and tossing it across the grass. "That failure pushed me to figure out what I really wanted to do. Turns out it wasn't math." That line hit me. What I really wanted to do, I'd never even asked myself that. I was so busy trying to make everyone proud that I forgot to ask what made me happy. That evening, when I went home, Mom was in the kitchen humming an old Elvis tune. I hugged her from behind and whispered, "I'm sorry." She turned, smiled, and brushed my hair back. "For what, sweetheart?" "For letting you down." She shook her head. "Oh, honey, you didn't let me down. You just hit a bump. Everyone does." Her kindness broke something inside me. I cried in her arms like a little girl. You know when you finally let go after holding it all in? That was me. The next few weeks were strange. While everyone else celebrated college acceptances, I spent most of my time helping around the house and thinking, really thinking, about what came next. The weird thing was, the more time I spent alone, the clearer my thoughts became. I realized I never loved studying history or algebra or any of that. What I loved was writing. I had notebooks filled with half-written stories, poems, and letters I never sent. Words made me feel alive in a way grades never could, but I'd buried that part of myself under expectations and fear. One evening, Mark dropped by with his guitar. "Want to hear something?" he asked. He played this soft, slow tune, and I swear, it felt like every note understood how I felt inside. I laughed and said, "You're actually pretty good." He winked. "Guess we both found what we're meant to do, huh?" That night, I opened my old notebook, flipped to a blank page, and wrote at the top, "The day I failed my exam but found myself instead." I didn't know it then, but that title would become my truth. For the first time in months, I felt light. Like failing that exam didn't end something. It began something. I was no longer trying to be perfect. I was just trying to be me. I didn't know what the future held yet, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. You know, life has a funny way of connecting the dots, but only when you look back. At 17, all I saw was failure. But now, at 65, when I sit on my porch with a cup of tea and think about that time, I can see how that one failure became the best thing that ever happened to me. After that summer, I didn't go to college like most of my friends. At first, it felt embarrassing, watching everyone post about their new schools while I stayed home. But slowly, that embarrassment turned into curiosity. I started spending more time at the local library. It was this quiet old place with wooden floors that creaked when you walked, and a librarian named Mrs. Turner who always wore bright scarves. She noticed how often I came by and one day said, "Linda, have you ever thought about writing something of your own?" I smiled shyly and said, I do write sometimes. She leaned closer, her eyes warm. Then don't just sometimes, dear. Write always. That stuck with me, so I did. Every day after breakfast, I'd walk to the library, sit by the window, and write. Sometimes it was short stories, sometimes letters I never sent, and sometimes just thoughts. About life, about people, about how messy and beautiful everything can be. It became my therapy, my way of understanding myself. One afternoon, Mark stopped by again. Yeah, same Mark from the park. He'd been playing gigs at small bars and cafes, chasing his music dream. He read a few of my stories and said, Linda, these are amazing. You should show people this. I laughed. Who'd want to read the ramblings of a girl who failed her exams? He smiled. Maybe the people who feel like they're failing too. That hit me deep, so I did something crazy. I mailed one of my stories to a local newspaper, a short piece titled, When Failing Felt Like Falling, But I Learned to Fly. And guess what? They published it. I still remember holding that newspaper in my hands, my name printed right there under the title. I cried, I laughed. I even ran to my mom's room screaming, Mom, I'm in the paper. She hugged me tight and said, I always knew you'd find your way, honey. That moment changed everything. From there, doors I never knew existed began to open. I started writing weekly columns, sharing stories about everyday people, their struggles, their dreams, their little victories. People would write letters to the paper saying, Your words made me feel seen. And that was better than any grade I could have ever earned. Years passed. I built a life around storytelling. Eventually, I started teaching creative writing at a community college. Yep, the same kind of place I once thought I'd never belong. Funny, huh? I used to fear classrooms. Now I stand in front of them and tell my students, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is just life trying to point you in a new direction. Sometimes my students look at me like they don't believe it, until I tell them my story. The day I failed my exam, the day I thought my life was over, the day I realized it was just beginning, and now when I look back, I can laugh. I can even thank that version of me, the scared, tearful 17-year-old who thought she was a failure. She didn't know it then, but she was becoming the woman who'd one day stand tall, proud, and free. Last week, I found one of my old report cards in a dusty box in the attic. The word failed was still there, bold and sharp. I stared at it for a while, then smiled. Because that paper didn't define me, it refined me. So yeah, if there's one thing I've learned in 65 years, it's this. Sometimes you have to lose your way to find yourself. Sometimes you have to fall to see how high you can rise. And sometimes, failing an exam can be the first step toward passing life. Haha, life's funny like that, isn't it?